My name is Reuben Fletcher, and at 68 years old, I never thought my own flesh and blood would betray me. After building tech vision solutions with my beloved Linda for 30 years, our son Jeffrey took over when cancer took her from us. I watched him gradually change once he got control, but nothing prepared me for the day. He looked me in the eye and said those words that shattered my heart. Before I tell you how I taught my ungrateful son a lesson about respect and family legacy, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how a father's careful planning changed everything. I was born in a small town in Ohio, the son of a factory worker who taught me the value of honest labor. I met Linda during my sophomore year at State University, where I was studying computer engineering, and she was pursuing her business degree. It was 1978, and the digital revolution was just beginning. Linda saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. While I was fascinated with the technical aspects of computing, she recognized the potential business applications. Computers aren't just for NASA and universities, Reuben. She told me one night as we studied in the library. They're going to change how every business operates. We should be part of that change. After graduation and a modest wedding, we moved to Boston in 1982 with nothing but student debt, big dreams, and a prototype software system I had developed for inventory management. Linda convinced a local grocery store owner to let us implement my system for free. When it increased their efficiency by 20% in 3 months, word spread quickly. Tech Vision Solutions was born in our tiny apartment, with Linda handling the business side and me developing the software. Those early years were tough. We ate ramen noodles most nights and worked 16-hour days. When Linda got pregnant with Jeffrey in 1985, we barely had enough saved to cover the hospital bills. I remember bringing our newborn son home to our small apartment, Linda cradling him while looking over quarterly projections. "He'll inherit all this someday, Reuben," she whispered. "We're not just building a business. We're building a legacy." By the time Jeffrey started school, Tech Vision had expanded to 20 employees and moved into our first real office space. Linda's brilliant strategy of targeting mid-sized businesses overlooked by the major players paid off. We offered personalized service the giants couldn't match, and technology the small local firms couldn't develop. Jeffrey grew up watching us build the company. As a child, he'd come to the office after school, doing homework in the break room, or sometimes sitting in on meetings, absorbing everything. He showed an early aptitude for technology, and I spent weekends teaching him programming. By high school, he could code almost as well as some of our junior developers. "He has your technical mind and my business instincts," Linda would proudly tell our friends. I believed it too. Jeffrey went to his mother's alma mater, double majoring in computer science and business administration. He graduated with honors and joined Tech Vision immediately, eager to learn every aspect of the company. For the next decade, things progressed beautifully. The company expanded to 300 employees. We opened offices in Chicago, Atlanta, and San Francisco. Jeffrey rose through the ranks on merit, not nepotism, eventually becoming our chief innovation officer. Linda and I began discussing succession planning. Then came the day that changed everything. Linda went for a routine checkup and came home with a diagnosis of stage 3 ovarian cancer. The doctors were optimistic at first. Linda was only 55, in good health otherwise, and we had access to the best medical care money could buy. "We need to accelerate the succession plan," Linda told me one night after a particularly rough round of chemotherapy. Her once vibrant brown hair had fallen out, and she'd lost 20 pounds, but her mind remained sharp as ever. "Don't talk like that," I begged her. "You're going to beat this." "We have to be practical, Reuben," she insisted. "Jeffrey is ready for more responsibility, but we also need safeguards." Even as she fought for her life, Linda worked with our attorneys to create a detailed succession plan. She insisted on a complicated ownership structure that I didn't fully understand at the time. Multiple holding companies, trusts, and contingency provisions. I trusted her business acumen completely and signed whatever she put in front of me. "It seems excessive," I told her. Linda just gave me a weak smile. I hope it is, my love. But a mother knows her child. Jeffrey has many gifts, but he also has vulnerabilities. Ambition can be a double-edged sword. Over the next 3 years, Linda's condition worsened, despite brief periods of remission. Jeffrey took on more responsibilities as Linda became too weak to come to the office. I split my time between the company and caring for my wife. When Linda finally passed away 2 years ago, Jeffrey was named CEO according to the succession plan. I remained as chairman of the board, though largely in an advisory capacity. In my grief, I was actually relieved to have Jeffrey take the reins. Running the company without Linda felt impossible. The first 6 months after Linda's death, Jeffrey seemed to be honoring her legacy. He spoke of her often in management meetings, quoting her business philosophies and maintaining the company culture she had built. But gradually, I began noticing subtle changes that concerned me. The first red flag appeared when Jeffrey hired a new chief financial officer without consulting me. Martin Hargrove came from a cutthroat investment bank with a reputation for aggressive cost-cutting. When I expressed concern about the cultural fit, Jeffrey dismissed my worries. "We need fresh perspectives, Dad," he said, his tone slightly condescending. "Mom built an amazing company, but markets change. We can't be sentimental about business decisions." Over the next few months, Jeffrey brought in several new executives who seemed to share Hargrove's philosophy. In management meetings, I noticed how these newcomers would exchange glances when I spoke, sometimes barely concealing their impatience. They used corporate jargon that felt foreign to the plain-speaking culture Linda had established. One Tuesday morning, I arrived at the office to find my parking space occupied by a sleek red sports car I didn't recognize. When I inquired at reception, the new desk attendant, who didn't know me by sight, informed me that reserved parking was for current executives only. "I'm Reuben Fletcher," I said, watching recognition and embarrassment flood her face. "Co-founder and chairman." "I'm so sorry, Mr. Fletcher. That's Mr. Jeffrey's new car. He told us to give you visitor parking in the garage basement. I'll have someone move it right away." I waved off her concern. "No need. I'll park in the garage." But the incident left a bitter taste. Later that day, I overheard Jeffrey in his office with the new marketing director, Amanda Reeves, a sharp and ambitious woman in her early 30s. "Your father seems upset about the parking situation," she said. Jeffrey laughed. "He'll get over it. Dad's stuck in the old ways. Can't expect the founder to have the same privileges forever." I walked away before they noticed me, my heart heavy. The company culture began shifting rapidly after that. The family atmosphere Linda had nurtured was replaced with aggressive sales targets and cost-cutting measures. Quarterly earnings became the only measure of success. The annual company picnic was canceled. The education assistance program for employees' children, one of Linda's pet projects, was temporarily suspended due to budget constraints. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but notice Jeffrey's lifestyle changes. The modest condo he'd owned was sold, replaced by a waterfront penthouse. His wardrobe now consisted exclusively of designer suits. And then there was Amanda, who had quickly become more than just the marketing director. They made no attempt to hide their relationship, arriving together at company functions in her equally new luxury convertible. During a routine review of company financials, I noticed several large consulting fees paid to firms I didn't recognize. When I inquired about them, Hargrove provided vague explanations about strategic repositioning and market analysis. My requests for detailed reports were repeatedly delayed or denied. One morning, I arrived to find Gloria Winters, our office manager of 25 years, clearing out her desk, tears streaming down her face. "Gloria, what's happening?" I asked, helping her pack a framed photo of her grandchildren. "Layoffs, Mr. Fletcher. They're letting go of 20% of the staff, mostly the older employees. They called it right-sizing for the digital age." Gloria had been with us since the beginning. She'd babysat Jeffrey when Linda and I worked late. She'd organized Linda's memorial service. I marched straight to Jeffrey's office, not bothering to knock. "You're laying off Gloria? And others? Without consulting me?" Jeffrey looked up from his computer, annoyed at the interruption. It's a routine restructuring, Dad. The board approved it yesterday. I'm the chairman of the board. There was no meeting. Jeffrey sighed. The executive committee handled it. You're technically an emeritus chairman now, remember? We changed the bylaws 3 months ago. I had no recollection of any such change. Later, I found the document buried in a stack of routine paperwork I'd signed, while distracted by the 2nd anniversary of Linda's passing. I tried several times over the next few weeks to schedule a proper conversation with Jeffrey. Each attempt was met with excuses about important client meetings or business trips. When we did speak, it was always in the presence of others, never one-on-one. At the quarterly all-hands meeting, Jeffrey announced a complete rebranding of TechVision Solutions to simply TVS Global. The familiar blue and green logo Linda had designed herself was replaced with a sleek, generic monogram. We're positioning ourselves for international expansion, Jeffrey explained to the assembled staff. The old name and logo served us well, but market research shows they're perceived as regional and outdated. I sat in the back of the room, watching 30 years of history erased in a 15-minute presentation. No one mentioned that Linda had hand-drawn the original logo, or that TechVision's name came from her belief that technology should help people envision better futures. That evening, I searched through old files in my home office, looking for the detailed succession documents Linda had created. Strangely, I couldn't find the originals, only summaries. I made a note to call Thomas Bradford, our longtime family attorney who had worked with Linda on the plans. Before I could make that call, Jeffrey announced another bombshell, a potential merger with Innovatech, a multinational corporation known for acquiring successful mid-sized tech companies, stripping their assets, and discarding the remains. When I expressed my concerns during the preliminary discussion, Jeffrey cut me off. With all due respect, Dad, this is a complex modern business transaction. It's normal to feel attached to the company you built, but you need to trust those of us actively managing it now. Several board members who owed their positions to Jeffrey nodded in agreement. I realized with a sinking feeling that I was being systematically pushed out of the company Linda and I had built from nothing. 3 weeks later, Jeffrey called to invite me to dinner at Bellamy's, the most expensive restaurant in the city. His tone was unusually warm, almost like the old Jeffrey. Just you and me, Dad. It's been too long since we've had a proper talk. I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early, as was my habit. The maitre d' led me to a private dining room in the back, where I was surprised to find not just Jeffrey, but Amanda as well, both already seated and halfway through a bottle of champagne. Hope you don't mind that Amanda joined us, Jeffrey said without getting up. We're celebrating. Amanda gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was wearing a diamond necklace I recognized immediately, a piece I had given Linda on our 25th anniversary. That's a beautiful necklace, I said, taking my seat. Jeffrey gave it to me last week, she replied, touching it briefly. He said it was just sitting in a drawer. I said nothing, though my hands trembled slightly as I unfolded my napkin. Linda had worn that necklace during her final days in hospice. I had placed it in her jewelry box after the funeral, not in a drawer. A server poured champagne into my glass. Jeffrey raised his in a toast. To new beginnings, he said. I left my glass untouched. What are we celebrating exactly? Jeffrey and Amanda exchanged glances before he responded. I was going to wait until after dinner, but since you ask, I have exciting news. The Innovatech deal is happening, but it's even better than a merger. They're buying us outright. 100% acquisition. The room seemed to tilt slightly. You're selling TechVision? The entire company? TVS Global, Amanda corrected smoothly. And yes, the offer is excellent. Significantly above market value. Your mother never wanted to sell, I said, addressing Jeffrey directly. She believed in keeping the company independent, serving our community, taking care of our employees. Jeffrey rolled his eyes. Mom was an amazing businesswoman for her time, but the market has changed. This deal secures our future and provides excellent shareholder value. The employees who've been with us for decades. What happens to them? There will be some redundancies, of course, Amanda interjected. That's standard in any acquisition, but the truly valuable team members will have opportunities within Innovatech's structure. The way she said truly valuable made it clear she was referring to age and salary levels, not loyalty or institutional knowledge. Jeffrey leaned forward. Look, Dad, I've been meaning to talk to you about another aspect of this. The company owns the house you're living in. This was news to me. What are you talking about? Your mother and I bought that house in 1992. Actually, you transferred ownership to a company holding 15 years ago for tax purposes. It's all documented. And as part of the acquisition, all real estate assets will transfer to Innovatech. My mind raced back, trying to remember such a transaction. There had been numerous legal and financial maneuvers over the years, many that Linda had handled while I focused on the technical side. So what does that mean? I asked, though I was beginning to see where this was heading. It means you'll need to find a new living arrangement within 60 days of the deal closing next week. Jeffrey's tone was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing a minor scheduling change. I found some nice retirement communities that would be perfect for someone in your situation. My situation? A widower with limited income, Amanda clarified. The company pension will be discontinued as part of the acquisition, but Jeffrey has generously arranged for a small stipend. I looked at my son, searching for any sign of the boy we had raised, the young man who had once spoken so passionately about carrying forward his mother's legacy. Instead, I saw a stranger in an expensive suit, impatiently checking his watch. Why are you doing this, Jeffrey? The company is successful. Your mother's vision was to pass it down through generations, not sell it to the highest bidder. Jeffrey's expression hardened. I'm doing this because it makes financial sense. Mom's sentimental vision doesn't work in today's economy. And frankly, having you hanging around, questioning every decision, has become untenable. I built that company from nothing, I said quietly. Your mother and I worked 16-hour days for years so you could have opportunities. And I'm supposed to be eternally grateful? Jeffrey's voice rose. You're living in the past, Dad. The world has moved on. You've become a burden on the company, on me, always going on about how things used to be, how Mom would have done things. Amanda placed a restraining hand on his arm, but Jeffrey shook it off. You want the truth? Fine. You're a burden. I sold Mom's company. Good luck paying rent. The deal closes next week, and then you're on your own. The restaurant seemed very quiet suddenly. A lifetime of memories flashed through my mind, hundreds of moments, large and small, that had led to this betrayal. Yet surprisingly, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I smiled at my son, which seemed to confuse him. All right, good luck, I replied simply, rising from my chair. That's it? That's all you have to say? Jeffrey looked almost disappointed by my lack of reaction. What else is there to say? You've made your decision. I placed my napkin on the table. Enjoy your celebration. As I walked out of the restaurant into the cool evening air, I heard Amanda ask Jeffrey, what did he mean by that? Why was he smiling? I couldn't hear Jeffrey's response, but I knew my calm reaction had unsettled him. He had expected anger, pleading, perhaps tears. Instead, he got acceptance that clearly made him suspicious. Little did he know that his mother had anticipated this moment years ago and had prepared accordingly. The drive home was strangely peaceful. As the city lights blurred past my window, I remembered a conversation with Linda during her final months. We were sitting in the hospital garden during one of her better days, watching butterflies flit between flowers. Jeffrey's changing, Reuben, she had said, her voice weak, but her eyes clear and focused. Have you noticed? I had tried to reassure her. He's just stepping up, taking on more responsibility like we wanted. Linda shook her head slowly. It's more than that. I see how he looks at the company now, not as our legacy, but as his possession. I've seen that look before in acquisitions we've handled. It's hunger, not stewardship. You're being too hard on him, I protested. He's grieving in his own way, preparing to lose you. Perhaps, she conceded, But a mother knows her child, flaws and all. I love him dearly, but I've always seen his weakness for validation, for status. Remember how easily he fell in with that crowd in high school? The one that convinced him designer labels determined your worth? I did remember. Jeffrey had gone through a phase where nothing but the most expensive brands would do. We thought he'd outgrown it. What are you saying, Linda? She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. I'm saying we need to protect him from himself and protect what we've built. I've been working with Thomas on some additional legal structures, just in case. At the time, I'd attributed her concerns to medication or the fear a dying parent has for their child's future. Now, parking in my driveway, I realized she had seen what I refused to acknowledge. Inside the house, I went straight to Linda's study, preserved exactly as she left it. Behind her collection of business books was a wall safe few people knew existed. I entered the combination, our wedding anniversary, and removed a sealed envelope marked Contingency, Tech Vision Solutions. Inside was a letter in Linda's handwriting, dated just 2 weeks before her death. My dearest Reuben, it began. If you're reading this, then my concerns about Jeffrey have proven justified. I pray I'm wrong, but I've made arrangements in case I'm right. Call Thomas immediately at his private number below. Tell him Blue Butterfly. He'll understand and explain everything. Know that I love you both. Always. Linda. With trembling hands, I dialed Thomas Bradford's number, despite it being nearly 10 in the evening. Reuben, he answered on the second ring. I've been wondering when I'd hear from you. Blue Butterfly, I said, feeling slightly foolish, using what sounded like a spy movie code phrase. Thomas's tone changed immediately. I see. Are you somewhere secure where we can talk freely? I'm at home. Jeffrey just told me he sold the company to Innovatech. The deal closes next week. Has he? Indeed. Thomas sounded unsurprised. And I assume he's made it clear you're no longer welcome in the company or perhaps even your home. How did you know? Because Linda predicted exactly this scenario. She hoped she was wrong, but she prepared thoroughly in case she wasn't. Can you come to my office first thing tomorrow? There's a great deal to explain, and documents you'll need to sign. The next morning, in Thomas's wood-paneled office, I learned the full extent of Linda's foresight. For over 3 hours, Thomas walked me through an intricate legal structure that left me in awe of my late wife's brilliance. Tech Vision Solutions, the company Jeffrey believes he controls, is actually a subsidiary, Thomas explained, laying out complex organizational charts. The parent company, Blue Butterfly Holdings, owns 70% of Tech Vision's voting shares through a series of trusts and shell companies. And who controls Blue Butterfly Holdings? I asked, though I was beginning to understand. You do, Reuben. Linda transferred controlling interest to you through an irrevocable trust that activates only under specific conditions, including an unauthorized attempt to sell the company. Jeffrey was never given access to these documents. The board members he's appointed have no authority over the parent company, so the sale to Innovatech cannot legally proceed without approval from Blue Butterfly Holdings, which Jeffrey doesn't even know exists. Linda created a shadow board of directors, longtime friends and colleagues who understand her vision, ready to step in if necessary. I sat back, overwhelmed. Why didn't she tell me all this before she died? Thomas smiled sadly. She wanted to give Jeffrey every chance to prove himself. She hoped these measures would never be needed, but she also knew that if you were aware of the failsafe, you might inadvertently reveal its existence. As I drove home, memories of Linda's final months took on new meaning. Her insistence on private meetings with Thomas, the numerous documents she'd had me sign without full explanations, her cryptic assurances that everything would be taken care of. That afternoon, I watched Jeffrey on the local business news, proudly announcing the acquisition of TVS Global by Innovatech, promising synergistic growth opportunities and enhanced shareholder value. The interview was clearly pre-recorded before our dinner confrontation. Amanda stood beaming at his side, my late wife's diamonds gleaming at her throat. At Thomas's suggestion, I made no immediate move to contact Jeffrey. Instead, we spent the next 3 days activating Linda's contingency plan. The shadow board was convened. Key documents were filed with regulatory authorities. Trusted executives who had been quietly forced out by Jeffrey were contacted. Meanwhile, Jeffrey and Amanda departed for Milan, supposedly for a business meeting related to the acquisition, though their social media posts showed more champagne than spreadsheets. A 5-star hotel, shopping at exclusive boutiques, Amanda modeling her new Italian designer wardrobe by the Duomo. On the morning the Innovatech deal was set to close, Thomas and I arrived at TechVision headquarters with the shadow board and a team of corporate attorneys. Security personnel, confused by conflicting instructions, ultimately deferred to me as the company founder. We gathered in the main conference room just as Jeffrey's lieutenant, CFO Martin Hargrove, was preparing to sign the final transfer documents with Innovatech executives. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Thomas announced, distributing legal papers to everyone present. "Mr. Jeffrey Fletcher lacks the authority to sell this company. These documents clearly show that Blue Butterfly Holdings maintains controlling interest in TechVision Solutions." The Innovatech lawyers huddled, examining the paperwork with increasing alarm. Hargrove frantically tried calling Jeffrey, who was 9 time zones away in Italy. "Mr. Fletcher isn't answering," he reported anxiously. "Something about his accounts being frozen?" Indeed, another aspect of Linda's contingency plan had involved securing the company's financial assets against unauthorized transfer. Jeffrey's attempt to move funds the previous day had triggered automatic freezes on all associated accounts, personal and corporate. By midday, the magnitude of the situation had become clear to everyone involved. Innovatech's CEO, initially furious, became thoughtful after a private conversation with Thomas. "It seems we were misled about the ownership structure," he admitted when they returned. "We'll need to reassess this entire transaction." As the reality of the situation spread through the company, I received the first of what would eventually be 53 calls from Jeffrey. I let each one go to voicemail, as Thomas advised. We needed to secure the company fully before engaging. Through Hargrove, we learned that Jeffrey had awakened in Milan to discover his corporate credit cards declined and urgent messages from Innovatech. When he checked his banking apps, he found all accounts inaccessible. By the time Jeffrey and Amanda managed to book return flights on their personal credit cards, the transformation at TechVision was well underway. The shadow board had voted to remove Jeffrey from all positions. Security had been instructed not to admit him to any company properties. Employees had been briefed on the situation in an emergency all-hands meeting where I had explained, as gently as possible, that the company would be returning to its founding principles. "Your jobs are secure," I assured the anxious staff. "The planned sale will not proceed. TechVision Solutions, with its original name and logo, will continue as an independent company committed to its employees and community." The relief in the room was palpable. Many had been updating their resumes, knowing that acquisitions typically led to massive layoffs. As difficult as the situation was, I took no pleasure in my son's downfall. Each of his increasingly desperate voicemails broke my heart a little more. But Linda had been right to create these protections. Jeffrey had proven himself willing to destroy everything we'd built for short-term gain and status. Jeffrey and Amanda landed at Boston International Airport 36 hours after the failed acquisition attempt. By then, the business press had picked up the story. "Family drama derails tech acquisition," read one headline. "Mother's posthumous business coup saves company legacy," declared another. Their first stop was the penthouse apartment, where they found the locks changed and a security guard posted at the entrance. "The property belongs to TechVision Executive Housing LLC," the guard explained, handing Jeffrey an envelope. "All your personal belongings have been packed and moved to storage. The address is in the letter." Their next destination was company headquarters, where Jeffrey was stopped at the lobby security desk. "I'm Jeffrey Fletcher, the CEO," he insisted, his voice rising as his keycard was declined. "I'm sorry, sir. You've been removed from the authorized access list. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with current management, I can provide a contact number." By the time Jeffrey arrived at my house, He had worked himself into a state of frantic rage. I watched through the window as his taxi pulled up, as Amanda waited in the car while he stormed up the walkway. His normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, his designer suit wrinkled from travel. I opened the door before he could knock. "You duplicitous old man," he shouted, pushing past me into the foyer. "What have you done? Some kind of corporate coup? I'll sue you for everything you've got." "Please come in," I said calmly, closing the door. "Would you like some coffee? You must be tired after your flight." My composure seemed to infuriate him further. "Don't patronize me. I want to know exactly what you did and how you're going to fix it. The Innovatech deal would have made us all rich." "It already made the call," I replied, leading him to the living room where Thomas waited with a legal assistant. "And there's nothing to fix. Your mother created safeguards to protect the company from exactly this scenario." "Mom? What are you talking about?" Thomas stepped forward, introducing himself formally, as if Jeffrey hadn't known him his entire life. "Mr. Fletcher, I represented your mother in creating a complex ownership structure for TechVision Solutions. The company you attempted to sell is merely a subsidiary of the actual parent company, controlled by your father." Jeffrey collapsed onto the sofa, his expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and anger. "That's impossible. I've seen all the corporate documents." "You've seen what your mother wanted you to see," I explained gently. "She hoped you would honor her vision for the company. When it became clear you wouldn't, her contingency plan activated. This is about Mom's sentimental attachment to that outdated company? This is insane." Jeffrey jumped up, pacing the room. "Amanda and I had plans. The penthouse, our investments, everything was tied to that deal." "I know," I said. "Linda anticipated that too. She believed money and status were your vulnerabilities. She wanted to protect you from those impulses." "Protect me? By humiliating me? By destroying my reputation?" Jeffrey's voice cracked. "Innovatech will never work with me again. No one in the industry will trust me after this." "That's not entirely true," Thomas interjected. "You have options, which we're prepared to discuss. But first, we need your signature on these documents, acknowledging the actual ownership structure and resigning from all positions at TechVision and its subsidiaries." Jeffrey stared at the papers, then at me. "And if I refuse? If I fight this? Then we proceed with legal action regarding the attempted unauthorized sale of company assets, potential fraud charges for misrepresenting ownership to Innovatech, an investigation into certain financial transactions over the past year that appear irregular." The color drained from Jeffrey's face. I knew he had been siphoning company funds through those suspicious consulting firms I'd noticed earlier. "You would do that to your own son?" The question cut deep, but I maintained my composure. "I would do what's necessary to protect the company your mother and I built, and the hundreds of employees who depend on it, just as Linda did." For a moment, I glimpsed vulnerability beneath Jeffrey's anger, a flash of the little boy who had once followed me around the office, eager to learn. But it vanished quickly behind a mask of cold calculation. "I need to consult with my own attorney," he said finally. "Of course," Thomas replied. "But be aware that every hour you delay potentially worsens your legal position. And Miss Reeves might want to return certain items of jewelry that belong to the Fletcher family trust, not to you personally." Jeffrey's eyes narrowed. "I'll be back tomorrow, with counsel." As he stormed out, I watched from the window as he slid into the taxi beside Amanda. Even from a distance, I could see their heated argument begin immediately. By the next morning, I learned that Amanda had checked into a separate hotel, leaving Jeffrey to face the situation alone. His attorney, a sharp young litigator, spent 4 hours reviewing the documents with Thomas before advising Jeffrey to sign. The alternative, he explained bluntly, was years of costly litigation he would ultimately lose, possibly facing criminal charges in the process. When Jeffrey finally signed the papers, his hand shaking slightly, he wouldn't meet my eyes. "What happens now?" he asked the room in general. "That depends on you," I replied. "Your mother never wanted to exclude you from the company completely. She just wanted to ensure you couldn't destroy it. So I'm supposed to crawl back? Start over as some junior executive? After being CEO? Thomas cleared his throat. There are provisions for you to earn back limited equity and a board position, contingent on demonstrated commitment to the company's core values over time. Jeffrey laughed bitterly. Core values. Right. He stood, straightening his jacket. I think I'll explore my options elsewhere. As he reached the door, I called after him. Jeffrey, your mother loved you. Everything she did, including this, came from that love. He paused briefly, his back to me. She had a funny way of showing it. And then he was gone. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Restoring Tech Vision to its original vision required undoing much of Jeffrey's work over the past 2 years. The shadow board became the official board. Hargrove and other Jeffrey loyalists were replaced with executives who understood the company's values. Gloria Winters, the longtime office manager who had been laid off, was rehired with a promotion and back pay. Many other terminated employees were invited back. The education assistance program was reinstated. The original logo returned to the website and building signage. Innovatech, after initial legal threats, ultimately proposed a more limited partnership rather than acquisition, which we considered carefully before declining. Tech Vision Solutions will remain independent, I announced at a press conference, continuing the legacy of innovation and community commitment established by my late wife, Linda Fletcher. The business press, initially focused on the family drama aspect, gradually shifted to analyzing the rare instance of a company successfully resisting acquisition by a multinational corporation. Industry analysts noted that our employee retention and customer loyalty far exceeded industry averages, suggesting Linda's people-first approach had tangible value beyond sentiment. Jeffrey, meanwhile, discovered that his reputation had indeed suffered significant damage. His attempts to secure executive positions at other tech firms were rebuffed. Amanda, who had briefly reconciled with him after the initial shock, ended their relationship when it became clear his financial prospects had dramatically changed. 3 weeks after signing the resignation papers, Jeffrey appeared at my door, unannounced. He looked different, thinner, the designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a button-down shirt. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual confidence. I invited him in, offered coffee, and we sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes before he spoke again. "I messed up, Dad. Badly, I see that now." "Yes, you did," I agreed, not unkindly. "I let the wrong things become important. Status, money, impressing people like Amanda who didn't really care about me." He stared into his coffee cup. "I forgot everything you and Mom taught me." "Why did you do it, Jeffrey?" "We raised you to value more than just profit." He sighed heavily. "After Mom died, I felt this enormous pressure. Her shoes seemed impossible to fill. Then these new business contacts, people like Martin and Amanda, made me feel like I had something to prove. That the only way to step out of your and Mom's shadow was to be more aggressive, more modern, more cutthroat than you ever were." It was the most honest he'd been with me in years. "I'm not asking for my position back," he continued. "I don't deserve it, but I need help, Dad. I'm nearly broke. The penthouse had a mortgage I can't pay. My investments were leveraged against the Innovatech deal. Part of me wanted to immediately offer financial assistance to protect my son from the consequences of his actions, as I'd done when he was younger. But Linda's voice echoed in my mind, reminding me that true parental love sometimes means allowing your child to experience the natural results of their choices. "I can't just write you a check, Jeffrey. That wouldn't help either of us." His face fell. "I understand. I'll figure something out." "That doesn't mean I won't help at all," I clarified. "I've purchased a small condo as an investment property. You can live there rent-free for 6 months while you get back on your feet. And I can connect you with some of my old contacts in the industry who might be willing to give you a chance in a junior position." Relief washed over his features, followed quickly by humility I hadn't seen in him for years. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve after what I said to you. Calling you a burden when you've carried me my whole life. We all make mistakes, son. The question is what we learn from them. Over the following months, Jeffrey started over from the bottom. Through my contact, he secured an entry-level position at a small software development firm, working longer hours for less money than he had since college. He moved into the modest condo, sold his luxury car, and began the humbling process of rebuilding his life and reputation. Our relationship remained fragile, healing in small increments. We began having dinner together every other Sunday, carefully avoiding business topics at first, instead reconnecting over shared memories of Linda and simpler times. At TechVision, I had no intention of returning as CEO. At 68, I wanted to honor Linda's vision without managing day-to-day operations. We promoted Sarah Chen, a longtime employee who had started as Linda's assistant 20 years earlier and risen to operations director before being sidelined by Jeffrey. She understood the company's culture deeply and had the technical knowledge to lead it into the future. I remained as chairman, focusing on mentoring the leadership team and preserving the company's values. We established the Linda Fletcher Foundation, dedicated to providing technology, education to underprivileged youth, and supporting cancer research. Though the company was secure and thriving again, I still struggled with the emotional aftermath of Jeffrey's betrayal. On my therapist's recommendation, I joined a support group for parents estranged from adult children, even though our estrangement was partially resolved. Listening to other parents' stories helped me process my own complicated feelings of failure, guilt, and lingering hurt. You didn't fail as a parent, my therapist assured me during one session. Jeffrey made his own choices, and thanks to Linda's foresight, he has the opportunity to learn and grow from those choices rather than being destroyed by them. 6 months after the failed acquisition, Jeffrey paid his first month's rent on the condo, insisting it was time he took full responsibility for himself. He had received a modest promotion at work based on his performance, not his name. The designer suits remained in storage, replaced by a more appropriate wardrobe for his current position. I'm dating someone new, he told me, during one of our Sunday dinners, a kindergarten teacher named Hannah. She has no idea who the Fletchers are in the business world, and I'm not telling her yet. She likes me for me, not for what I can provide. It was the first time I'd seen genuine happiness in his eyes, since before Linda's illness. Your mother would be proud of you now, I told him, meaning it. Not because you're successful, but because you're becoming the man she always knew you could be. 1 year after the confrontation that changed everything, TechVision Solutions celebrated its 40th anniversary. The company had not only recovered from Jeffrey's brief but tumultuous leadership, but was thriving with renewed purpose. True to Linda's original vision, we implemented an employee ownership program she had designed, but never fully realized. Every employee who stayed with the company for 5 years received shares, creating a workforce with genuine investment in our collective success. The Linda Fletcher Innovation Center opened in the headquarters building, providing space and resources for employees to develop new ideas outside their regular responsibilities. Several promising products emerged from this initiative, including accessibility software for disabled users that would have particularly pleased Linda. At the anniversary celebration, I found myself surrounded by employees both new and old, sharing stories about the early days when Linda and I worked from our apartment with nothing but determination and a shared dream. Mr. Fletcher, you built something truly special, Gloria told me, now serving as our newly created Chief Culture Officer. Most companies talk about being a family, but TechVision actually lives those values. Linda built it, I corrected gently. I just helped with the technical parts. Gloria smiled. You're both still building it, through all of us who carry forward what you taught us. Jeffrey attended the celebration, though not as an executive. He came as my son, mingling somewhat awkwardly with employees who knew the basic outline of what had happened, but not all the details. Hannah, his kindergarten teacher girlfriend, accompanied him, her warmth and genuine interest in others helping smooth over uncomfortable moments. In the months following the anniversary, I focused increasingly on the healing process, both for myself and my relationship with Jeffrey. We began a tradition of monthly fishing trips, something we had enjoyed when he was a boy, but had abandoned as he entered his teen years. During those quiet hours on the lake, conversation flowed more easily than it did anywhere else. "Do you think you'll ever fully trust me again, Dad?" he asked during one such trip, watching his line bob in the water. I considered the question carefully. Trust isn't binary, Jeffrey. It's not all or nothing. Right now, I trust your intentions. I trust that you've learned from what happened. Trust with larger responsibilities will come with time. He nodded thoughtfully. That's fair. More than fair, really. Your mother used to say that trust is like a vase. Once broken, you can glue it back together, but you'll always see the cracks. The key is building something new that incorporates those cracks as part of its beauty, rather than trying to pretend they don't exist. She was wise, Jeffrey said softly. I didn't appreciate that enough when she was alive. By the 18-month mark, Jeffrey had earned a management position at his new company through genuine merit. He and Hannah had moved in together, planning a small wedding for the following spring. Our Sunday dinners expanded to include her, bringing a new warmth to my too-quiet house. At TechVision, I gradually reduced my involvement, transitioning to the role of founder emeritus. The company was in good hands with Sarah Chen and the leadership team, all committed to Linda's principles of ethical business, employee welfare, and community responsibility. The Linda Fletcher Foundation expanded its work, partnering with local schools to provide technology, education, and scholarships. I found particular joy in mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds, sharing the lessons Linda and I had learned through decades of building something meaningful. The most valuable thing I can tell you, I often told these aspiring business owners, is that success isn't measured by your exit strategy or acquisition value. It's measured by the lives you improve, including your own. As for Jeffrey, our relationship continued its slow healing. There were still awkward moments, still times when a certain look or phrase would trigger memories of his betrayal. But increasingly, those moments were overshadowed by new positive interactions. At Thomas Bradford's retirement party, Jeffrey approached me with an idea. I've been thinking about writing a book, Dad, about failure, redemption, and second chances in business, about what I learned from losing everything and starting over. I think that could help a lot of people, I told him, genuinely impressed by the concept. Your story is unique, but the lessons are universal. Would you consider writing the foreword? He asked hesitantly. Your perspective would add a lot. The request touched me deeply. I'd be honored, son. As I approach my 70th birthday, I often reflect on the journey of the past few years. The pain of betrayal, the shock of discovering my son could become someone I barely recognized, the grief of nearly losing the legacy Linda and I built, but also the profound gratitude for Linda's foresight, the joy of watching TechVision return to its founding principles, and the complex emotions of seeing Jeffrey find his way back to the values we had tried to instill. I've learned that family businesses carry unique risks and rewards, that succession planning must account not just for financial and legal considerations, but for character and values, that sometimes the greatest act of love is creating boundaries that prevent someone from causing irreparable harm to themselves and others. Most importantly, I've learned that true wealth has nothing to do with money or power. It lies in wisdom hard-won through experience, in relationships that withstand even the most severe tests, in creating something of lasting value that improves lives beyond your own. If Linda were here, I think she would be satisfied with how her contingency plan worked out, not because it protected the company, though it did, but because it ultimately protected our son from his worst impulses and gave him the opportunity to become a better man. What about you? Have you ever had to make difficult decisions to protect something you built or someone you love? Have you experienced betrayal from someone close to you, only to find an unexpected path to healing? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Life teaches us all hard lessons sometimes, but sharing those lessons helps others navigate their own challenges. Thank you for listening to an old man's story. Until next time, remember that the true measure of wealth is not what you have, but what you give.